So if we go, the discipline is to find our, say, top 5 or top 10 issues or emotional signatures in our life.
These are things that bother me, that I think about every now and then?
You will know them because the mental body is always fixating on them.
Okay.
So what are the thoughts I'm fixating? Who are the people I'm supposedly having problems with? What are the problems going on in my body that I'm having issues with? And find the top 5 or 10 of those and write them down as one word, because we don't want to make a story. We just want a label so we can identify that issue.
For each one?
For each one.
All right.
And once we've written it down, we can sit with it and identify what is the emotional signature, what is the feeling here, and where is this in my body, right? Because what they are is they're all emotional signatures. In fact, they're like notes in a tune of a song we don't like to play. It's a tune we don't like to listen to. That tune is always playing in my body, because if I think about my father, I'm having issues with my father, and it brings up the anger. And then I feel that anger, say, here. The reality is that feeling is always there. That anger is always going on. I'm just at times not aware of it, and in the story about it and acting out the behavior, and that behavior becomes the doing. So the task of not doing is to approach those emotional signatures every day for 5 to 15 minutes. But the most important thing, in order to make this transition from doing to being, is to approach it absolutely consistently. Consistency is the key, because every time I'm being with those emotional signatures, there are going to be consequences. The consequences are that I'm going to receive what I require to bring resolution.
Oh, to that signature.
To those various signatures.
Okay.
Right? And so what's important is that I go and visit those signatures, emotional signatures, consistently every day. And even if I only do it for, say, 30 days as a task, that will be enough. Because if I go every day consistently, it's like a parent that is consistent with a child. It doesn't spend all day with the child, but is going to meet with that child at some point every day and consistently be with that child, is going to give rise to a more balanced child than a parent who spends all day with the child, every now and then, and you don't know which day it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So consistency is the key. And also because being without condition consistently, there's being, consequence, being, consequence, being, consequence. And eventually what happens is we start to see how what we require to bring resolution to these emotional signatures is brought to us in a way that has nothing to do with our doings. We didn't do anything to make it happen. It's brought to us through someone, for phone calls. We bump into somebody we needed to speak to. Someone suggests something that helps us with this body thing. Things are brought to us that we know we didn't do to make happen. Mm-hmm. And what we start to make the connection is, eventually, through this experience, we make the connection between being without condition and receiving what we require. So as we make that connection, and we start to see and have no doubt that my being without condition at the causal point of these emotional signatures is bringing what I require to resolve them, then as I go through my life, when difficulties arise, I'm less likely to enter doings to try and bring resolution, and more likely to rather enter being without condition upon the point of that. And then my activity in the world is less about doing things that I can feel better, and more about just participating in life, in the momentum of life as an expression of my being. So that's the one approach, and that approach, when applied with discipline every day, eventually it won't be required for us to do this not doing, because we will value being without condition enough to monitor our emotional signatures as we go through the day. So that's the one aspect of it, is that I'm going to go and look at the emotional signatures that drive me into doing, and I'm going to be with them without condition, so that I can see that the resolution comes from me receiving what I require, not what I need and want, what I require to bring resolution. That's the one aspect. Now there's another aspect of the emotional signature that is important and misunderstood by us. And this is best demonstrated by, for example, an actor who has an audition. Right?
Okay.
So they have an audition that evening. They have an audition one evening for a play. And when they wake up on the day of the audition, they've practiced their lines, they know their movements, everything. But they wake up that day and they start to feel anxiety and nervous about the audition. So because this feeling is coming up, they tell themselves a story. Oh, I'm probably not going to do well. Maybe I need to learn my lines more. So they spend all day doing stuff to try and, and making themselves more nervous and practicing. And by the time they get to the audition, they're already in a state, and they don't have the level of experience, or they don't have the level of experience that is possible. They will leave that audition going, I just wasn't my best. I didn't give my best. There was just, I was nervous. I wasn't. So life is like that all the time. All the time in life, we have activities we know we are going to enter. And what happens? So, for example, if that actor had woken up that morning and felt these emotional signatures and said, this is what I require, because this is what I require to enliven my state of being for the audition tonight. In other words, this anxiety that I'm feeling is actually nutrition. That if I allow myself to digest it, if I be with this emotional signature all the day and pay attention to it, it's going to enliven my state of being. By the time I arrive at the audition, I'm going to be in my heart, I'm going to be fully in my body. And if I go through that audition staying connected with my emotional center, because we know, for example, acting, although it's people doing physical things and saying physical things, you can have some actors that can just sit there and encompass an emotional state without displaying emotion. They're just like the mafia boss, for example. He just sits there. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, you're not going to mess with this guy. He's not doing anything, but he's just sitting there, and the resonance of him is one of power or emotional strength. Acting is really about an emotional component. Can I connect with the emotional component of my character? Because if I am, I don't have to move around and make faces to show my emotional state. It's going to radiate. And the more I can radiate that emotional component, the more I'm believable as an actor, right? So that's the same with life, right? In life, we're constantly entering activities that are, our enjoyment of that activity is determined by our state of being, not what we do. Although when we're in a doer frame, we think it's what I do that has to make that activity great. But actually, it's being as present as possible there. It's really tuning into the emotional component of that experience. So as I go through life, aside from the practice of visiting my top 5 or top 10 emotional signatures every day, to enliven my state of being, to awaken me to a state of being, as I go through my day, there are emotional signatures that are going to come up. Naturally, I'm going to be driving to work, I'm going to have a feeling come up. I'm going to be walking somewhere, I have a feeling. I'm going to dinner with my family, an emotional state comes up. These emotional states don't come to hurt us or sabotage us. They come to enliven the state of being required for that event we're walking into. Mm-hmm. And if we tune into that emotional state and stay with it and just be with it and digest it, that becomes the nutrition so that we can fully be in the moment of that event. And we start to see that that's what it means. We always receive what we require. What we require, it's like in the in one of the things that Jesus supposedly said was, why are you worrying about your nutrition? The birds get theirs. The lilies don't worry about this. If the lilies and the birds are taken care of, what are you worrying about? And that's a teaching on, you receive everything you require. When you get up in the morning, whatever emotional state you're in is the nutrition you require to enliven your state of being for that day. But can you receive it?